Hello, folks. I am gonna go online. I will be live on YouTube, but really, what I'm putting down is some catching up on some content because we've been busy writing, but we haven't been doing a good job on the YouTube side with that. So, what we're gonna do today, and if somebody joins me and starts asking some questions, we'll cover them. But I am going to double back to some of the articles we've written, and some of them are interrelated to each other. So we'll get through that today. This afternoon, I'm going to be covering a bunch of the articles we've written, putting some YouTubes together for those articles. That way, people can listen to. Some people told me they really don't like reading, especially when it gets to a little more wonky stuff in there. So we're gonna do that. We're going to cover the articles as we go. So first off, again, I will tell you guys a critical place for you watching any of the Larry the GM content is right here on the off-season guide, off-season outline. I'm keeping this up to date with things that are getting added to articles that are being added. What I've done also now is anything that's new within the last few days is going to be in blue font. So you can quickly try to find the things that are new. But this, again, we're going through the all season calendar and we're keeping up with what's going to happen, right? So you can see all the different articles. It's obviously the red links to the articles. You can just press on those links and you'll either be sent to an article on the website or even sometimes an article or something referencing covering the same material on the outside if I'm not going to write it. If it's not about the Astros, I'm not probably going to write about it. So just so you know, that's all there. And I would highly suggest spending time with that. All right. Well, let's get to the content we're going to cover. We're going to talk about free agents. And let's go. All right, if we can do this, and it'll probably go into some sort of weird death spiral. Don't worry about that. No, I got you. All right, here we go. So, can free agents part one? Excuse me, guys. Astros team needs assessment internal options. Okay, so guys, this is a really important foundation setting article for us. I'm going to do this. Let's see. All right, this isn't going to work for me. Hang on, guys. Give me 10 seconds to go figure this out. Put that over there. See the Larry the GM at work. Right. Oh, by the way, I have my World Series T-shirt. Came in yesterday. Pretty excited. Got a World Series T-shirt. More on the way. All right, so here we go. You're gonna have to see me turn my head a little bit, but we'll try not to do that too much. So as we show in the offseason guideline, the team had exclusive rights with players until last week on Thursday. So they didn't sign Verlander or Gurriel or Brantley. So all those players became free agents. Basically, this article set up a world where there was two different universes. One where no player is re-signed, period, and that turns into a scenario, and we'll cover part two later this afternoon and make a video there. Scenario two is what we call bring the boys back in part two, and this is where these players are all brought back. So let's talk. But before we get into like what scenarios are going to work in part two, what we really wanted to do in this part one is do a foundation set with like what do the Astros need. And so you see there the orange line It's really showing you where the Astros are, or where they were, I guess, about a week ago, as far as WAR projections for each one of these positions. The reason I do this is it helps objectively set what are the most important things for the Astros to go pursue in the offseason. I mean, we could go, Astros could go get a second baseman, but it really wouldn't help when you got the best second baseman in baseball. That's what or best for WAR projected from second base. That's what this table tells you. So, conclusions from that, where the Astros were have the fifth most talented team. That's this number way over on the right side of the table. They have the seventh highest rated WAR projected from the bats, and they have the eighth highest projected from the pitching. So we can actually kind of like, well, that doesn't seem right related to the pitching, especially. And you may think the bats should be better than that. What the table does tell us, as we look in detail, is that catcher is predicted to be the least competitive position that the Astros have. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do anything about it. We'll cover that between these two articles. We'll talk about that. It says first base without Gurriel is actually projected to be a somewhat middle of the pack, 16th place, the WAR delivery. In fact, if you go sign Gurriel and project him to play 500 plate appearances, even 400 plate appearances, the WAR from that position goes down. No one wants to talk about that. Okay, and what I wrote even out this morning, we'll also have another video. We'll talk about Gurriel specifically. As a reminder, Gurriel was a negative 0.9 WAR in 2022. I don't think most people, if they know that, they don't necessarily want to talk about that. They don't want to believe that it's true, and they say, "Well, he was great in the postseason." Well, we covered why when we talked about rest. Shortstop projections show that the Astros, what they're predicting for Pena is a dropping back to the mean, or where they project his mean performance is, and which would mean that the shortstop actually is a fairly below average 22nd place. I'm just going to tell you guys, the Astros aren't going to do anything about shortstop. They're going to run with Pena. If he has a sophomore slump, they'll probably play Hensley there some more. But they're not investing free agent or position player resources towards shortstop. And David Hensley is the backup that they'll roll with, and that's just the way it's going to go. Left field is also a spot here that shows to be a little bit of challenge with the 23rd highest rank. Actually, it's center field. It's the 23rd. The way to resolve that would also, because they're projecting McCormick and Alvarez playing a lot in left field, well, you can put Alvarez more and move McCormick to center field. You can improve that. There's some other ways. That's a spot that we can talk about free agents in the outfield and make the center field a better WAR delivering position. So one of the things embedded in this is left field. Their playing time projections essentially are the left column here. When I think it's going to look more like the right column here without Brantley, and the middle column if they do sign Brantley. I'll say this: like, I don't really know. There's some, you listen to Dusty Baker. He expects Alvarez to play like majority of the time. I don't really think that's going to happen. I just don't. But I mean, maybe it does. So, I mean, here's some verbiage about that. At the end of the day, I also wanted folks to understand, like, this projections for all these positions. This is where Fangraph is saying the plate appearances will come from and how they allocate these positions. So you understand all this basis. This is a basis setting article for you to understand what is being projected about this team, what they're saying that the team as it's currently constituted constituted that this team is going to be able to, what they're going to be able to do, who's going to do what. I mean, is JJ Matijevic really going to have 392 plate appearances at first base? I don't. I think there's almost zero chance of that. But that's what they're saying. Given who's on the team as of a week ago, that's what it's going to look like. So those problem areas, the catcher, what can they do about it? Well, in the world that you're expecting, Maldi to be back, the answer is not much. I mean, you could play Maldi a little less maybe and hope that Yanir Diaz and/or Corey Lee are, better producers, better offensively, better defensively than Maldi. But in a world that Maldonado comes back, the Astros really aren't going to be able to solve this deficit that they have as far as WAR production unless Maldi finds the fountain of youth and just produces significantly better than he has in the last few years. I think there's a non-zero chance. It may be 1%, but it's not zero, that Maldi may decide to retire. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't crucify me for saying that, but it's a non-zero chance that a 36-year-old will decide, I've had enough. And if the Astros can find a non-playing position for him with the organization and pay him well to do that, maybe he considers it. I don't know. I would love for Maldonado stay engaged with this organization in a non-playing role. If you deviate from him as your starting catcher, that opens up a world of possibilities. They have been rumored to be interested in Contreras. That you still could make an argument they should be interested in Vasquez. I don't think that window's going to be wide open. And in recent interviews, I haven't really heard Jim Crane talk about catcher at all. So it's not top of his mind as something to talk about as a possible need spot. So are they going to pursue Contreras or not? I don't know. And we'll talk more about that actually in part 2. Like I said, I don't think JJ Matijevic is getting 392 plate appearances first base, but who is? I think if you look at all positions where this team is potential to add a external free agent, first base is probably the biggest target. Now, since this article was written, Rizzo has re-signed to go back to the Yankees. So is that a possibility or not? I mean, that's not possible. What about the other options? We'll talk about that more in part 2. And then, as far as left field and center field, you could help center field by having Alvarez play more in left field, place Brantley to play more in left field, sign Brantley, play him in left field some, and have McCormick play in center field, and have Dubon, who's in their projections of playing 133 plate appearances and 126 in left field, 133 in center field, take those down to double digits and less than 50 for each one of those, and turn Dubon into a true utility player. Those are the sorts of things that could happen that would drive up the values and the tweaks. So what I did is if you look at no returning players, absolutely working only with the players that are on that table right now, I can make some tweaks and move that projection of WAR from 30.7 to 30.9. That's not a big deal. It's not, it's not a big change. The pitching side, I can move it from 15.7 to 16.3, but that doesn't fundamentally change the story of the Astros being the 5th most talented WAR delivering team that we started with. There's not a big enough change. You're not going to fix it by tweaking the playing time. So what this article sets up for is, okay, if this is where we're at, and we could, if we just go sign Verlander, Gurriel, and Brantley, the WAR for the batters goes down to 30.3. That's not a good situation. And the WAR for the pitchers goes up to 17.7. So you get a little bit better. You close the gap between fourth and fifth in this table. Now, understand the other teams on this table, they're going to be improving over where their baseline is too. So it's kind of hard to say, okay, they move in the fourth place as far as the war delivery because if another team signs a big free agent, they may move further than the Astros would. So here we go. That's the point. That's the situation as far as the baseline for the free agents. I wanted to get this out there because I want people to know really when we talk about the Astros needing to do something, they do need to do a few things. This is a great, great baseball team. We are across the board in this war delivery heat map red in a lot of spots, right? But we have some blue spots that we really need to think about addressing. Now, the team went and also improved over here with signing Montero, making the relief pitching better. I haven't factored that signing's not factored into these numbers. This was written before that, and I don't intend to update these numbers until February-ish time frame when we're actually moving toward the season and we actually have some settling of who's going where. So, guys, that's where we're at. That's the kind of the goals. That's why we are getting ready to talk about in part two what we're getting ready to talk about. So, part one, free agents, internal options. What are the needs? Where do we really need to focus? We need to focus on if we're willing to move from Maldonado, we definitely need to improve on the catching. If we're not, just leave it. Focus our energies elsewhere. But that includes first base, left field, and some potentially some help. It's really left field and first base. I mean, that's really where we're gonna and potentially the relief pitching, which one can argue they've already addressed. I think they also need to think about a left-handed relief pitcher. We'll talk about more of that next time. Okay, guys, that's part one. I'm gonna close this video off here. I'm gonna come back in like 5 minutes. I'm gonna take a drink of Mountain Dew. Come back in 5 minutes and we'll talk about part two, which is the fun part where we go shopping for free agents. All right, thanks, guys. We'll be back in a minute.